coming up on Mic'd Up.
I think in our lives, we don't really remember the days, we remember moments. That time, those experiences when you're in the right place at the right time, when something happens and it's unexpected, and there's just a magical sense of purpose and significance in that moment. And I've just found that is what people really cherish. That's what moves people.
Welcome to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DeChocho, and on my show, I interview entrepreneurs, award-winning authors, entertainers, business leaders, athletes, and other talented individuals who I personally invited to join the show to inspire you to be brave and bold in pursuit of your dreams. If you dig this show and are looking for more inspiring content from incredible people, click the subscribe button and you'll be notified of each episode release. Subscribing is free and it means the world to me that you've chosen my channel to tune into. You can give a gift of thanks and appreciation for providing this content to you. Simply visit patreon.com/mikedup, MIKEDUP. Any amount is greatly appreciated and totally unexpected. I welcome you to connect with me on my other social channels as well. All links are clickable in the description to make it even easier to connect. Thank you again for tuning into Mic'd Up. Enjoy the show. Our guest today is an Emmy Award-winning motivational keynote speaker, author, musician, and workforce expert. He's fun, dynamic, and absolutely entertaining. He was featured in Business Q magazine as one of their top 40 under 40 as a premier corporate keynote speaker. He has appeared on America's Got Talent and feature films with actors such as School of Rock's Jack Black, and rightfully so because he totally rocks the drum kit and has played professionally for over 20 years. He has founded the UVU Drumline, known as the Green Man Group. He's also directed for 6 years the Drumline for NBA's Utah Jazz up until 2015. He's the author of I Love It Here, How Great Leaders Create Organizations Their People Never Want to Leave. Welcome to the show, President and founder of the Center for Employee Retention, Clint Pulver.
Mike, what's up? It's
My
an
dude.
honor to be on the show. Yeah, this means a lot. Thank you.
Well, I need a break after that. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a nap. If you can take it away from here. You know, it's like when you're singing, you have to know really good singers. They get comfortable like taking a break. And it was like, I was getting towards the end, I'm reading your book title and I'm like, I think I'm going to pass out.
I'm running out of oxygen.
I'm running out of oxygen. I'm feeling it. There's like, it's like a video game where you can like see the
Yes, and then it's out.
So I'm breathing now. We're good. Meditating a little bit in the moment. This is exciting. I want you to know that very creepily, I did a lot of homework on you to see and understand what you're about. No, I joke, but I kind of shared this off camera. I want our audience who's tuning in, and thank you guys for doing that on YouTube and Apple and Spotify and wherever you guys are tuning in. Clint, I actually discovered his content on YouTube, and I'm going to put this in the show notes because we're going to talk a lot about this video. It kind of sparked a lot of what Clint's been doing. It's a video about Mr. Jensen, who's an actual true story. And I was preparing for a mastermind group that I actually host and I'm facilitating. Every month we like to come to the table. I like to bring to the table like a nice 3 to 5 minute inspirational video to get everybody thinking and talking about it. We actually go around the room virtually and talk about the video. And it was your video with Mr. Jensen. And of course, as a drummer, it resonated with me. And people who tune in are going to understand why. Because I was that kid that always stopped tapping in class. I got yelled at all the time. And so that's where I kind of discovered your content. And then all of a sudden I realized it wasn't a one-off situation. You have so much great content on social and YouTube. So I want to say a gigantic thank you for being here. I know you're super busy on stage all the time too. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor. I appreciate you finding the video, sharing the video. You know, that was the whole intent. It's been cool because we've never really like fueled the video with like ads or a marketing budget. It's just been something that we tried to create that was quality, that was moving, that was shareable, and people have shared it.
Organic, man.
A lot of people. Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, I think the algorithm helped out because we got inspirational content and drumming. I mean, it was just like, what else are we going to send Mike? You know, that's where.
Yeah, it spoke straight to Mike. It was like, this is my video.
I love it. Well, I'm going to break a little bit of the ice there. I mean, I do want everyone to tune into the whole thing, but essentially what the video is about is you're in class, you're 10 years old, right? I pulled a quote right out of here for you. So in the video, you're tapping away all the teachers, you're sent down to the principal essentially because you're making noise, you're kind of distracting class. Mr. Jensen tells you to sit on your hands. That works for about 5 seconds. And then eventually he tells you to stay after class. And he gives you this inspirational moment where he realizes nothing's truly wrong with you. You're a drummer. That's in your heart. It's in your spirit. It's in your blood that you're going to be making some extra noise. And instead of trying to take the drummer and the dream out of someone, he put drumsticks in your hands. And then the quote I want you to elaborate on too, it ends with this powerful quote, guys. It says, I learned there's a difference to being the best in the world to being the best for the world. And I want you to know you've certainly done that. Drum workshops, inspirational videos. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by that?
Yeah, I think there's a big difference in the world between success and significance. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the success, the popularity, the likes, the followers, the data. Where are we today versus where we were yesterday? Are we growing? Are we successful? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I look at what I really remember in my life, and it really is the moments. It's the moments of significance. It's the moments where I was doing something bigger than myself. It was the opportunity to write a great story by helping other people live that story. And it's not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world. How do we strive for significance in our lives? And one of the greatest things with Mr. Jensen and what he did is he created a moment. A moment. I think in our lives, we don't really remember the days. We remember moments. That time, those experiences when you're in the right place at the right time, when something happens and it's unexpected, and there's just a magical sense of purpose and significance in that moment. And I've just found that is what people really cherish. That's what moves people. That's what we remember. And at the end of our lives, I don't care what any of us do. None of us are getting out of life alive, right? And I think when we look back, or when that moment comes for all of us, you're going to be surrounded by really two things. You're going to be surrounded by the woulda, shoulda, couldas, or you're going to be surrounded by the do it, did it, done it's. And most of my do it, did it, done it's are surrounded and consumed with moments.
Yeah, it's really powerful, man. I think back to, like, we're talking about Mr. Jensen, who is an actual teacher of yours that inspired that story. But I think back to the teachers that I would say, yeah, I had a great teacher. I really liked the teacher. And it is moments. I think of moments from a high school teacher that helped unlock my potential when I scored highly on my first Regents exam, which is like, if you score high in Regents in New York State, it's higher. Yeah, it's a big deal. Up until that point, I remember kind of thinking, I was just kind of, okay, my sister's the oldest. She was the smart one in the family. My brother was barely passing. And I was always like in this gray area of not having an identity. And then she kind of unlocked my potential. And I remember the moment that she called the house and I thought I was in trouble. And when I heard my teacher was on the phone, and it was her telling my mom that I got a 94 on the exam, which was like way above what I thought I was, able to do. And then all of a sudden, guess what? I started getting 90s in math after that because I knew I believed that I could do it. But it was a moment. And then I think about, my friends in music. As I mentioned, I'm a drummer as well. My best childhood memories, I can think of my friends that were also drummers or musicians. And it's moments. It wasn't every day, all day. It was these like key things that we think about. It's relationships. Could be with past girlfriends, boyfriends, spouses, children that we don't get to see as much. We certainly remember those moments, and that is super. It's like, so our brain was doing social media before social media existed.
Yeah, 100%. And it's cool too, because Mr. Jensen, I call him Larry now, he's still alive.
That's
big
awesome.
part of my life.
I got to get him on the show. Forget Clint. Get him on.
Yeah, right? I know. But the cool thing is he designed the moment. I think we sometimes think of these moments as like, oh, you're just in the right place and this happened, and it just is happenstance, and it just right place, right time. But he designed it. He thought through it. He listened. He paid attention. He went and bought the drumsticks. He told me to stay after class. And I think that's like the most beautiful part of the story for me, is that he created that moment that wasn't in the curriculum. It wasn't a part of the lesson plan. It was something that he had to do above and beyond to become that advocate. And in doing so, it changed everything for me.
It was calculated from a leadership standpoint. Like, there's two ways this can go. This can go disciplinary over and over and over again until Clint is just put in a box.
Yep.
Maybe a soundproof box at that. Or encouraged. And then you also had to understand, okay, well, there is a certain time when I can actually bang on the drums, play my drumsticks, or sometimes we tap. And I know the tapping thing, because for me, literally almost 24 hours out of the day, there could be a drum beat in my head. Like if I stop, there's always something that comes right to the surface quickly. You know that feeling. All you have to do is hear like a little bit of music and we got the whole drum beat. We could just play a whole song in a second. And that happened when you're in math. You're watching the teachers like erasing the board and there's 10 seconds of dead space, but in a drummer's head and probably other musicians' heads, that's 10 seconds where a song is playing in their head.
Yeah, for sure.
So I love that it was calculated. I'd like to stay on that for a second. Do you know, now that you know Larry, Mr. Jensen, a little bit better, is that something he seeks for other students as well? Does he do that? Or was it just because it was a unique situation that it kind of stood out for him?
So he's retired now and much, much older than when this took place 23 years ago. But he impacted thousands and thousands of kids. It's been really interesting in my hometown growing up as the video has taken off and as I've spoken more and the story's just been shared. So many other students have come out and said, yeah, Larry impacted my life as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I also have a moment with Larry Jensen. Oh my gosh, yeah, I remember when Mr. Jensen did this. Like, it's been fun to like.
That's the stuff we need to get on the news. That is the stuff, like we always hear the other thing, like, the bad stuff about Mr. Teachers that did something. And now it's like, here's the positive. How come we're not hearing this as much? That's why I actually do the show, Clint. I told you a little bit off camera. It's to inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. But aside from that, go back. People can listen to the 100+ episodes. It's positive energy. I'm putting it out into the world, and I'm doing it by just getting out of the way and letting the guests shine. But more and more positive content needs to be out there because it exists. But I'm telling you, the agenda that we know from the bigger outlets are typically playing that fear tactic. I'm not trying to go super political in the moment. I'm just saying, historically, that's what's driving. And it's like, okay, well, now people can choose where they get their content and on-demand press play on a podcast or a YouTube video. That's why we're doing the show. That's right.
Yeah. And I think it's so good. We need more of it. It was really cool. I asked Mr. Jensen 5 years ago, I said, why me? I never asked. And I just said, you taught thousands of kids. Why was I the kid that got the drumsticks? And I remember he smiled, he looked at me and he said, I'll tell you why. And he said he learned really quickly as an educator. One of the first lessons he ever realized is that he couldn't save every kid. Every kid in every class, like you can't save every single one. But he did understand and know that every kid was asking the question to him as an educator, let me know when it gets to the part about me. Let me know in your curriculum. Let me know in your lesson plan. Let me know in your classroom management strategy. Let me know in your class vision. Let me know when that gets to the part about me. And he realized that no significant learning will ever happen without significant connection. And so he found the kid that struggled the most. He always looked for that one individual that, okay, how can I get to the part about you? And that's what he did for me. He, in a moment, created an opportunity that represented a relationship, that represented advocacy, that represented connection, that represented this ideal that a teacher saw me, not as a problem, but as an opportunity. He didn't see my issues. He didn't see these limitations that everybody else saw. He was the person that got to the part about me in a way that changed the narrative. I was the kid that after that moment, Mike, I stood up a little bit taller. I listened a little bit more. I worked a little bit harder. I controlled myself a little bit more because I knew
you felt your purpose was getting unlocked, right? Like a little bit. Yeah. I mean, at 10 years old, we don't know how to articulate that, right? But you feel seen and heard. Like, okay.
He gave me an identity. And drumming was cool. Yeah. And so again, he got to the part about me. And I think it's the same thing we ask of so many other people. We ask that of our partners, our spouses, our kids. Our kids are asking that of us. Our friends are asking, let me know when it gets to the part about me. And it's not about this entitled statement. I think sometimes people hear that and they think, well, my employees keep asking me, let me know when it gets to the part about me, those entitled little shining stars in my life. I mean, give me more, I want this. And it's not about entitlement. It's just about good business. It's about good teaching. It's about good parenting. It's bringing humanity back into our homes, back into our workplaces, back into our schools. Man, what a better story. What a better way to live. How can we get to the part about other people? We make those deposits of trust But over time, that allows us to then make the withdrawals if needed. But
Sure.
that's the beauty of a great relationship.
I think what you said earlier too, connectivity. It's that
Yeah,
connectivity. It's the understanding, and he connected with you
it's a big deal.
for a 10-year-old, like to have a teacher connect and not say, I'm giving you an assignment, I'm telling you to go up to the whiteboard, I'm giving you homework or whatever. He's connecting with you in a way, one-on-one after class, where he's actually working on something and then giving you that identity. So I'd love to hear from that point forward. You're about 10 years old. What were your dreams at that time? Do you remember being 10 and like, what, looking up at the world and saying, this is what I want to go do?
Yeah, one of the greatest days of my life was when I got my very first drum set, but I also went for my very first helicopter ride at the
Wow.
local airport. Well, at 10 years old, I wanted to be a pilot. That was like the ultimate dream. The dream was never to become a professional drummer, ironically. The dream was to fly. And through high school, I ended up going to flight school, became a pilot, was pursuing that dream, and then I got an eye disease when I was 21 years old. And I remember I went to the DMV to renew my driver's license, and I couldn't pass the vision test. And I'm sitting there putting my head in this black box, and I can't see the letters. And the lady's like, read the letters. I said, I can't read them. She comes around the counter, pushes me out of the way, puts her head in the black box, reads the letters verbatim. And she said, can you read? And I was like, yes, lady, yes, I could read. And then she said, then honey, I think you're blind. And I remember at that moment, she's now putting me under house arrest at the DMV, takes this big stamp, pushes it on my paperwork. It read denied. And
The opposite of Mr. Jensen, basically, is her
yeah,
attitude.
totally. And I called my mom, and long story short, I ended up at the Moran Eye Center at the University of Utah with a top leading authority in a rare and degenerative eye disease known as keratoconus. And as a 21-year-old kid, my eyes were as bad as an 87-year-old's.
Wow. So how did you just in day-to-day not feel that or have that come up? I mean, if you're looking at a street sign or a clock on the wall.
So the progression of the disease was rapid enough, but slow enough. And all keratoconus patients, people that have this disease, will understand this. If we needed to see something, if I need to see something closer, I'll just squint. If I squint, it will compress my eyes, and whatever was not clear can become clear.
Sure.
And it depends on the range. It depends on if it's far or nearsighted. Everybody's different on how their stigmatism and the thinning of the cornea works. But I just thought the way that I saw was the way everybody else saw. There's no way to really compare how you see versus what other people see. And I just adapted to being able to move my eyes to be able to see and function. And I'll never forget when he said, we're in the doctor's office, and he said, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to become? What's your plan? And I said, I want to fly. Well into my pursuit of being a professional pilot. And he looked at me and said, this is it. You're done. It will never happen for you.
We know it's interesting, though. You flew quite a bit after that, just in a different seat, couple rows back. Now you're flying all the time, all over the country. I know COVID had a little bit to hold up on that, but are you back up and on stages and flying around all over now?
Yeah, all over the world.
Yeah.
All over the world. Not as the pilot, but
right.
Still
I know.
flying.
So that dream changed, but I think that's the beauty. Whether it's God, the universe, whatever, whoever's tuning in, whatever you believe, I do believe that in higher powers, especially God. What we want isn't always totally the right thing, and sometimes there's this like little course correction. So, yeah, of course, you wanted to be in control, and it's the buttons, especially as a kid, all the buttons in front of you. It's exciting, but your calling was not to be in that seat; it was a different seat. And to go and share your message. And the fact that you've had that eye impairment has helped your story in some way because it happened for you, not to you. And I know you believe in that, similar to what you were saying earlier, that the success thing happens for us so we can share it with the world and inspire. And now it's part of your thing. Like you went into a different role, but it's the right one. You know what I mean?
Sometimes good things fall apart so that better things fit together. And that was totally that situation.
Yeah.
Being a pilot and that dream, that was a good thing. And it fell apart, but
yeah,
I would not be doing what I'm doing now. I would not be where I'm at, and I wouldn't change where I'm at for anything.
Maybe you wouldn't have liked it. After 5 years, you might have said, is this really what I'm going to do for 35 more years and just keep doing this every day?
Yeah. Yep.
maybe it's not the right thing, because that
Yep.
certainly seems fun, but it also does seem like eventually at some point it's going to get a little bit monotonous, right?
Hmm.
In a
Yeah,
good way, because you don't want activity. You don't want excitement when you're in that role. You want it to be like, I'm going to do the same 86 steps to get us from here to there and get on with the day. Yeah, so I think that's incredible for anyone listening to apply to themselves when they feel like maybe they are a little bit derailed from a dream, that it's okay because there's something that could be right around the corner. And personally, I'll speak from experience. Whenever I know I'm about to break through, I can feel this. I can see it. I can sense it. It's like I can smell the big moment on the other side of it. That's when everything happens. It's when relationships start to have turmoil. It's when personal things come into my life. It's when something financially, I get a bill that I didn't even know. Like all of a sudden you think you're feeling good and bam, you get hit. But it's typically, I feel like there's these like forces that try to hold us up right before we need to take one more step. And it's almost like only a certain few people are willing to face that adversity, which is why there's like that 1% at the top or whatever, however you want to look at it. Because it's like how much adversity everybody gets and then who's still willing to stand up after it. And it tends to be a small percentage of people. I want to keep us rolling here because there's so much we could talk about in your story. I wanted to make sure we started it kind of at that story with Mr. Jensen, getting into your dreams. And now we talked about you being on stage. So anyone who may be an event coordinator listening or someone who is connected to that person within an organization or corporation, they're planning their next corporate event right now. And they're like, man, what's this Clint guy all about? Like, this sounds like pretty interesting stuff. They look you up. What can they expect when they bring you up on stage?
I think the biggest thing is an experience. I am not a professional speaker. I'm someone that creates an experience from stage. So we tell the Mr. Jensen story, third person. Nobody knows that I'm the kid in the story. And then I reveal that. And then we reveal a full drum kit on stage. I'm a big fan of shock and awe. I believe as a speaker, never be predictable. It's fun to keep the audience on their toes. It's fun to keep that engagement high because they don't know where you're going to go. And we reveal that drum set. We sit down and we rock the house. And they get to see influence. I think it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing when you actually get to see that. And a lot of teachers don't get to see that. They're with a student for a year, maybe even half a year, and they create these moments. They strive to be that Mr. Jensen, that significant person in the students' lives. And sometimes they never get to see that impact. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. And that's in management, that's in parenting, that's in leadership. And so the Mr. Jensen story, that experience on stage shows them and reminds people of the role that they have, the opportunity to be that significant mentor in the lives of other people. And then literally after that, we transform the whole audience into a live drum line. And everybody's got buckets. We do customized drumsticks for the event. And all of a sudden, it's this immersive experience where they've got sticks. We're learning by doing, and I'm teaching the research that I've conducted over the last 5 years as the undercover millennial. Mm-hmm. And it is it's fresh, it's unique, it's funny, it's exciting, it's different. And they fall apart and they see how difficult it is to not just manage and lead and listen and connect. But at the end, we teach some of these really cool principles in the research that I found. And at the end of that keynote, they come together and it's just killer, and they kill it. They come together and create music and a movement, and it was small things applied consistently over a long period of time, and in doing so, you make the impossible possible.
I'd say it's impossible, funny you say it, for someone to attend that and not have fun. I don't care who you are. You get to make some noise. You get to get your coordination going. If you're not coordinated or musical, you can still do something there. I'm sure you're starting everybody off with some easy rudiments, some rights, some lefts, and maybe doing some paradiddles if people are getting ambitious, right? But it's impossible not to have fun. And then obviously you're connecting that back to the togetherness and the rest of the things that you talk about and educate on. And you did a little tease there for Undercover Millennial, which is what we're going to talk about right when we get back from the break. We're going to take a quick 60-second timeout with Clint. We'll be right back. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you. And that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight. And Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. All right, we're back in action with Clint, and as we teased right before the break, we're going to talk a little bit about Undercover. He has the Undercover Millennial Undercover Speaker Program. Before we do that, I want to talk about something. We kind of teased it a little bit and talked about the idea of dreaming or dreaming big, and I feel like there's kind of this unwritten law that happens in life. At least I'm talking our culture. We both live in this USA. Our culture kind of has this thing where you graduate high school, and at that point, you're picking your profession, you're picking what college you want to go to, and everybody kind of plays like that college major pinball. You try to see what fits, and you're bouncing around, going from one to the next. And eventually, your initial dream, I feel like, gets beaten out of you. And I don't think too many people would be surprised to hear me say that. How can people get back to their dreams when you feel like culture and society and other people's, they're maybe out of step with their dream? So a lot of times they don't really help push the people in their lives around. You know what I'm saying? Like if someone gives up on their dream, very rarely are they going to be like, Clint, let me help you get yours. They kind of just leave it at that. So how do you encourage someone right now who's listening to get back to some of the things that they can fall in love with again with their dream?
Yeah, if they know what that is, then first off, that's a huge help, because a lot of people I found, you ask them, what would it be? What would you do? If you knew that you couldn't fail, or if money was not an issue, what would you do? And a lot of the answer is, I don't know. I mean, I remember I wanted to be an astronaut as a kid, or I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but I don't know what that is. So one thing I have found too in our research that we've done for the last 5.5 years is that people found purpose. The number one reason how people found purpose in their lives was through the association and connection with other purposeful people. Mm-hmm. I found people, when they found that spark, there was somebody else, like a Mr. Jensen per se, right? There was an influencer, a mentor. Maybe it was an Instagram account. Maybe it was a conference and you met somebody and you're sitting down and you listened to them and you heard what they were doing. You saw what they had done. You're watching them on Instagram. You're watching their YouTube videos. You connect that, oh my gosh, that is what I want to do. That's what I want to be. And I would challenge people that if you've ever had somebody like that, somebody that you feel like, man, they are living the dream, they are doing what I want to do, I would challenge those individuals to do whatever it takes to associate with those astonishing people. It's really, Mike, I mean, it's classic Jim Rohn, right? Jim Rohn always said that you become the average of the 5 people that you associate with most. Yeah. I have no idea if that's ever been proven, but I do believe that. I grew up on a farm, and I learned really quick, if you put a hard-to-catch horse in a field with an easy-to-catch horse, you usually end up with 2 hard-to-catch horses. Same thing with, like, if you put a sick child in the room with a healthy child, you end up with 2 sick children, right? The association does matter. And so I think that we can find more purpose. We can find that dream. We can revitalize that dream and find a path on how to achieve it through associating with other people that are living and breathing the life we want to live.
I think it's the most important thing you can do when you're looking and you do have a big vision and dream for yourself and a calling and fulfillment. These are not just these soft words that we talk, like I always say, like a cute Instagram quote. We're talking about real, like when you're passion-led and you got something you want to do, which is the reason I started my show and the reason that you got up on stage. And I'm sure there was a day when you weren't comfortable doing that until you did it over and over again and built your confidence with it. But you get around people, like you said, that are also doing something, and it may be all different professions, but with a similar action and activity and fulfillment behind it. Yeah, it's totally contagious. And you see that in the opposite. Like if you put a bunch of people that are suppressed of a lot, everybody just gets into this lump and kind of stays there. And that's why you see when someone breaks out, it's that first friend that goes to a prestigious school or a football program better than their buddies. Because these guys are like, okay, football players, but this is like that star athlete. And now he's not getting the phone calls anymore because he's vibing at a different level and he's hanging out with different people. And it's not to be disrespectful, but he's trying to get around people that are going to be winning with what he's looking to do. And that happens so much in business. I can have one call with someone and kind of feel like, meh, about something. And then like have the same topic come up 30 minutes later with a different person. And it's like, we're just falling in love over this concept. And a lot of times I'm mindful of being the person that is the difference in that. Like someone brings something to me and they're kind of melancholy about it. How can I try to flip it? I'm trying to be that spark to bring up. I'm human. I sometimes I catch myself way more now than I used to. I used to be like hey, someone's being a Debbie Downer. All of a sudden we want to kind of match energy levels as humans, don't we? So you're like you said with the horse, like, if you're riding high, then bring people up around you. And that's certainly true, whether it's 5 people or 6. I think handful is something that we can tangibly imagine in our head, which is why the saying with Jim Rohn makes a lot of sense. Talking about undercover speaker, there's really kind of 2 things: undercover speaker, undercover millennial. Well, why don't we do the speaker one first? If that's still active, I'd love to hear more about it because it's cool. It's actually something that I had this idea, which is funny. A lot of the stuff you're doing are ideas I had in my head, and you're actually doing them, which I love to see. I'll just share my quick idea, and then I'll actually hear about what you're doing. I was going to create this app a couple of years ago. I had no idea how I was going to do it. But every time I worked in a corporation, whether it was sales, I worked for insurance, I sold Sleep Number beds, we always did these like surveys. It was either employee surveys or we used to have secret shoppers come in. But the secret shoppers had like 10 things they had to check off and they got a little scorecard. And it was very black and white. Like either I said a word that I needed to say in a presentation. If it wasn't there, I got points off. And it was very robotic. My idea was to actually go in and do like a full report on the experience, how I was greeted, what the language was used, how it made me feel, who I was with. I'm talking like nice fine dining restaurants that really are going for this big experience, and even give a report on like the quality of the food and everything else. And then the restaurant owner would get like a little packet of the full experience. So they're getting a blueprint on what's going on. And we can even do it a few different times, a month, and whatever the service level is, they can get more insights. And it would be the idea that a company is getting much more in depth than like a 5 or 10 question survey that someone got paid $50 to do and they don't care. They just want their $50. This is like hiring actual experts that, like, if you're offering fine wine, we would put someone in that restaurant that knows what the heck's going on with it. So that was my idea, and it sounds like you kind of already are taking that and running with it. So share your concept on that.
Yeah, so for the last 5.5 years, I've traveled the world as the undercover millennial. So it's kind of like undercover boss without the makeup. So I would go undercover into organizations, not as like a CEO or a manager, but as just someone who's a potential hire. So I'd walk into a Chick-fil-A, a Verizon store, a Walmart, a hospitality chain, a medical clinic, whatever. And I'd put on my street clothes, a backwards hat. I am a millennial, by the way. That's the generation I was born in. So I was young enough to go in and I would shave and just look as young as possible. And I'd walk up to the first person that I saw and I would just say, "Hey, I'm just curious, what's it like to work here?" And the employees, every time, they always get quiet. They look around. It feels like an illegal drug exchange. And then they tell me everything.
Yeah.
Everything, the good, the bad, what they love, what they don't love, because I'm not a survey. I'm not a one-on-one management meeting. I'm a potential hire. And I realized that because of my age and the environment that we created, people would speak their truth.
You know what I think it is too, Clint, real quick, is they don't want to do that even with their co-workers because that person could rat them out.
Yeah.
And their family doesn't always want to hear about it. They go home and it's like, okay, you had a bad day at work. But here's just a guy like, hey, I'm kind of interested in working here. And someone's like, either, yes, I love it with some great detail, or run in the opposite direction with some great detail. And you're getting all of it. And you have a pen in your pocket that's recording it too?
Yeah, we've got a pen and a lapel camera that we would use at times. And then we would use that footage. I would blur out the employees' faces. We'd change their voices if needed. And then if the corporation was big enough, because the number one goal always was to protect employee identity. That was not the purpose. It's not to figure out who needed to be fired or who needed to be promoted. The goal was to protect the identity of the people, but still give leaders the truth.
The constructive feedback they need. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. Most managers, Mike, they have no idea when they're doing poorly.
Mm-hmm.
Most managers have no clue because there's no incentive for an employee to speak their truth. Like, could you imagine if you're a manager, like you as an employee, or someone walking up to you saying, "Hey, listen, Manager Mike, I just want you to know, I feel like this could help you. You micromanage everything that we do. Happy Tuesday.
Yeah.
Keep it up."
And then they leave.
Or when's the last time an employee would walk up and say, "Hey, you're the guy that every time we win as a team, you take all the credit. Or every time we lose, you blame everybody else. It's never your problem. I just need you to know that."
That meeting went 17 minutes over and nobody learned a damn thing.
Yeah,
you just said we had to meet. Whatever it is.
Yeah. Is going to go and say that. Instead, what they really do is they just leave the company 3 months later. They quit.
No information is given on that. Yeah.
And then it leaves the manager and leadership sitting there scratching their head going, "Oh, we never saw it coming. I don't know what it is. We can't get anybody to work for us. It's just so hard to find good talent these days." And so again, the perception of leadership versus the reality of the employee experience is usually night and day different. And that's what the Undercover Millennial program was able to do. We were able to come in between that gap and bridge that and create a space where employees could really speak their truth and managers and leaders would actually listen.
That's amazing.
And I've loved it. It's one of the sweetest experiences of my life doing all of that research. We worked with 181 organizations, over 10,000 employees interviewed undercover. And the magic, Mike, I need to say this because the magic of the research was not found when an employee was dissatisfied with their job. Like, I got plenty of that. Yeah. The magic was found when I would go into an organization and I'd ask, "What's it like to work here?" And that employee would respond with, "I love it here. Mm-hmm. I love it here. I love our job. I love what we're doing. I love my manager, Susie. You got to meet Susie. She's amazing." And then I'd go to the next employee and they would say the same thing, and the next and the next. And it would trend in this significant and beautiful way. And that was when I had to ask myself, why? Why is this place different? Why is everybody thriving, not just surviving at work? So I decided to write a book about it. And we titled the book, "I Love It Here: How Great Leaders Create Organizations Their People Never Want to Leave." And it's all the solution-based data around how great leaders were doing that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Do you have something that a company can not only pay you to come in and do the reporting on it, like this is what we're gathering this information, but to use the already gathered 10,000 hours, or what was the number you said? Something crazy.
Yeah, 10,000 employees.
10,000 employees interviewed. That's a database right there that is powerful. So do people now hire you to come in and say, like, "Okay, tell me what are some of the key components for Susie that everybody loved about her? What were some of the things they loved? And then what are some of the disconnects that we need to eliminate or be mindful of? So if we see it, we can take care of it before Godzilla gets huge. We can take care of it at a smaller state."
Exactly. Yep. And that's exactly what we do. So that's why
you're doing that already. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then we have a 52 video management masterclass series, which companies will use for a year. And every week they send out a video to their management team as something after I've gone in and spoken to the team. We've got that connection. And then every week they just get a little piece of that research. And they're beautiful videos, micro learning, small, short, but it just helps them to keep the main thing. And again, it's compiling 5.5 years of research into a beautiful video series to help people close the gap. How do we bridge that gap?
That's so good. I plan on, as I continue to grow as a company and work with other entrepreneurs in my mastermind group and people I interview on the show, I will definitely be connecting you with some people for that course. Because, I see people, they bring a great widget or some kind of product or service to a business that definitely can help them. But at the end of the day, the most important piece of any organization is the people. Yes. And even if it's a widget where it's not like customer facing and there's maybe not a human being that's interacting, there's people that are creating it behind the scenes. There's camaraderie that happens. But at the end of the day, successful companies have, an accumulation of great people and connection and community among them. Again, working for a company where you can feel that people actually enjoy being there. You can tell the difference of that than walking into a store where nobody makes. I went into a music store. Now, I worked at a music store when I was about 23 years old, a family-run place. Great, everybody was joking around. Everybody knew each other by first name. And then I happened to go to a different music store. I was looking for a keyboard for my daughter a couple of weeks ago. And there's a music store literally like, quarter mile from her mom's house. So we just stopped there after brunch. No eye contact. No one wanted to help me. We're in the keyboard section. I'm with my 6-year-old daughter, having her sit, checking her posture, checking to see which keyboards feel good. Nobody wanted to come over. It's like, clearly I'm here with it's the beginning of the school year. Aren't you connecting the dots? She's taking piano lessons, guys. Like, you're about to sell a $600 keyboard just by saying hello to me, minimum. And nobody did. So I left, and then I drove further all the way to the music store I used to work at, and we bought it from there. And it was a slam dunk purchase because, they had what we needed, and it was just caught up with some old friends. It was the people. It was the experience.
The moments.
Yeah, it's the moments again. I know we're running so short on time. There's a big question I want to ask you at the end that I think can really summarize everything we talked about. But before that, if you can give me like 30 to 60 seconds or however long you want to take on it. You drummed all over. You played in some of the biggest arenas around town and around the country, in California, Los Angeles, you name it. You were doing it at a high level. Talk about a moment or two that just, whenever you think about that and you get that itch to play drums, does something stand out? Do you have a moment of like, I got to live that? That was truly reality in the moment. Is there something that comes back to you all the time?
There's two. I'll share one on the drumming side, and then I'll share one just kind of on the speaking side. Both kind of transitioned within the speaking world because I've been doing that for so long. I had the opportunity to drum for John Maxwell's Leadership Live to Lead event. And that's been like the dream event for me. John's been a great mentor, a great friend in my life, and invited me to speak on that stage. And as a young person who's fairly still new in the leadership development space compared to legends like him, I'm very new. And
he's the Elvis Presley of that space.
100%.
Yeah.
And for him to reach out and to invite me and to have the kit, the drums there on that stage, presenting my content, my story, my research, and to just, I don't know, that day when I hit that bass drum and the rafters shook, it was like, man, I will never forget this moment.
This is the one spot I belong in the entire universe. You were in that.
It was just like, unlocking. Man, what a moment. And then here was the kicker, was to look down in the corner, and there's John Maxwell on the front row, tears in his eyes. I just told we'd just seen the Mr. Jensen story unfold, and he's just watching influence, the thing that he has talked about and trained about for years and years and years. He's seeing that through me, and it was a moment for me to give back to a man and an icon in our industry that has given so much to me. So that was definitely a great moment.
That gives me chills, dude. That really does.
The other moment was after I went and spoke to a high school. So I started out in the youth world. I spoke to high school kids. I still do. I love speaking to high school kids. I call it the Raptors cage. That's the hardest venue that any speaker can speak in, is when you're in a gymnasium with a horrible sound system. You're surrounded by 2,000 high school kids. If you can keep their attention for 45 minutes, you can do anything.
And they're sizing you up with the latest TikTok video and influencer.
Always,
and they're sizing you up in their head. Is this guy legit? Are we going to give him 10 seconds of our attention?
Totally. Yeah. And so they really taught me how to speak well. But I'll never forget this one performance that I did. Played the drums, gave this inspiring message, shared my story. And after the event, the high school kids, we were sitting there, we were talking, and this young lady, she came up, she pulled on my shirt, and she handed me a note. She had tears in her eyes. She said, I don't need it anymore. Take it. And then she just left. I still have no idea who she was. I still don't know her name. But I took the note. I just said, thank you. I'm sitting there talking to other students. I put the piece of paper in my pocket, ended the event, grabbed my luggage, grabbed my double bass pedal, all the stuff, put it in there, walking out to the car. I sat in my car right before I started it to head to the airport to fly home. I remember the note in my pocket, and I took it out and I opened it up and I started reading, and I realized that it was this girl's suicide note. that she had written that morning. And I went and spoke at that school. And when she came up and handed that to me, I mean, that was the first moment for me, Mike, where I realized this mission, this purpose, this dream is so much bigger than myself.
And yourself. I knew you were going to say that because I felt it before you even said it. That's the magic. That's when you really know you're on purpose, is when really like the last person that's serving is really yourself. That's the legacy piece. And that's actually, I love talking with you because we're just good dancing partners, and you're great in everything you're doing. You're helping me transition nicely too, because we're talking legacy there, inspiring someone to go from that situation, that heavy, devastating, distraught place that she was in to start the day, and then to lift her out of that. It's part of your legacy. And so the question I wanted to kind of wrap us up with, I got one or two more if you have the time for it, but you wrote a book, so you're now physically an author. But I want you to think about this for a second. You're the author and protagonist in your own life story, and you get to write the ending. God willing, you continue to live a long, prosperous life. You're looking back, you're reflecting on it, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
It would be he was the person that strived to be the best for the world.
Mm-hmm.
Clint was the guy that strived to be the best for the world.
For the world,
I would also tag onto that an inspiring piece that's always near and dear to my heart, helped me to quit my job, helped me to follow my dream, was a quote by Oscar Wilde, where in that quote he said, "To live is the rarest thing in the world, for most people merely exist, and that is all." And the day I quit my job was the day I truly started living. And so I hope that the legacy would be also tied within that, as the man who really lived.
Your story is beautiful. And whenever I bring someone on the show, I say this and I mean it. Like, you got a friend here in Buffalo. You already invited me off camera to come and hang out in Utah. Maybe we'll catch a jazz game and you can get the Drumline together for one more show or something.
Yeah.
But I definitely plan on coming out that way. You know, when I do my California tour, I'll stop up. Connecting with someone like you is special because I want you to know I'm your first audience member today, not the actual audience tuning into me introducing you. I'm your audience member. This is always worth it to me because I learned so much. And I know that if one person tuned in today and they were that girl in the auditorium, or someone who is just getting beat up at work, like they cannot stand not being happy and fulfilled anymore, hearing your story, hearing, what we're talking about today, and actually internalizing it is why I do this show. And I know that's why you wanted to be here. My last question isn't designed to be a curveball, but what would your 10-year-old self think of your current day self? If it's looking up saying, wow, that's what I became. This is who I've become.
I hope my 10-year-old self would say, "You're very brave. You're very brave." Because my 10-year-old self would not have, I don't know if I would have never have fathomed this, but the hope is to go, look at the courageous risks that you took to get to where you're at. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, you just got here. Everything's just worked out for you.
Yeah, you were on this like cartoon road, the yellow brick road. Yeah, it's not quite how it works.
And so if that 10-year-old self was able to see that journey and to see where I'm at and how hard and scary and trying and difficult and lonely and frustrating and hard the process has been, I hope he would say, "You're very brave. You're very brave."
And I believe he will be very proud of you. The reason I ask that question is because a lot of times we get in the moment and we're always thinking about what we got going next. You and I are very busy. We got different things going on, running our businesses. And we don't always even though we can be meditative in the moment of each day, we don't always go back to that moment of when the dream was planted in our hearts and give ourselves enough grace. So that's kind of what I wanted you to do, is maybe even after this interview is take another moment to think about all those things, because the trials and tribulations are who make you you. They built your character, the calluses. You're able to help more people because of it. Not to say like, man, I'm going to throw some more adversity at Clint so he can be better at his craft. But the point is, life happens, and then it's what we do with that ball of clay, how we mold it. And you've got so many different unique things. You got the drumming thing. You have the undercover deal. It turned it into a business. You're a social media influencer with content that's purposeful to connect and help people. You do events like this where you're one-on-one being interviewed and vulnerable. So many cool things you're doing. And I just want to say thank you again for being here. You're a friend, man. You can give me a shout anytime and we can connect. If there's anything I can do to help you out, please let me know. I just want to thank you for your time today. And I know the audience definitely benefited from this conversation. Is there any last words you wanted to get out before you run?
No, I just appreciate it. Thanks for making your mark in the world, Mike. Keep doing what you're doing, creating moments and being the best for the world. That's what it's about.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mikedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mikedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCiccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.